Hello,
Hello
and welcome to another
to another dense
Dense Thinkers
thinkers.
podcast. Ori, 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 ori!
Yada, 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 bula, 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 bula.
Get fired up. We're talking about
Get fucking cultured, bro.
Nietzsche.
When are we not gonna suck this man's?
We've talked so much about Nietzsche, I'm surprised we're not Nietzsche himself by now.
Bro, are we? Wait a minute. Are we the simps? Oh my god.
I am not Simp-chan! No!
We've become the very thing we hate. Ryan, in fighting the monsters of the abyss, we let ourselves become them. We have failed. We are not Ubermensch.
Now, how would one return to the path once they've already fallen into the abyss?
Murder 12 babies.
Now, I did not read that in the text.
Dude, you didn't clearly read the analogy on page 169?
I've clearly read that whole page, and I did not see any symbologies correlating to that. So,
Listen. Sorry, go ahead.
I need you to talk to your rabbi and see what we can do to exit the abyss.
I got you, bro.
I appreciate that.
You know what we have to do is we have to read this whole chapter in a consecutive, coherent order. We're gonna start from the fourth part of the book. This is the final part of the book, people. Dude, I want to read the little of the compassionate on the page before, because this is like fire, dude. Did you read this?
Oh, I read it,
Dude.
and I liked it.
Dude, it's so good. Like, we could literally do an entire podcast on just that. Let me read it for the people that are listening. And if you don't have a book, get the book. What are you doing? How do you not have the book already? This is episode like 15,000 billion and you don't have the book, bro? Like, get on it, son. Unless you're new here, then I guess, you have an excuse. Anyways, here's the a little taste of Nietzsche. Alas, where in the world have there been greater follies than with the compassionate? And what in the world has caused more suffering than the follies of the compassionate? Woe to all lovers who cannot surmount pity. Thus spoke the devil to me once. Even God has his hell. It is his love for man. And I lately heard him say these words. God is dead. God has died of his pity for man. Drop the mic, boys. That was dense as you know what.
Now, give me a couple of sentences summary of what you think that means.
Do you want me to? It's so dense that we have to. Let's unpack this, people.
Couple of sentences. We're gonna
Okay.
We're gonna, sort of rebuke what he said with another couple of sentences.
Ready? I can summarize it in one sentence.
Okay.
Compassionism is bad because pity. Boom. Done.
Okay.
Get out of here. If you can't surmount pity, if you don't realize that pity is actually a toxic trait, a toxic virtue, then you're doomed. And compassion will turn into the lawnmower of people. You'll just murder people with compassion, like literally, not metaphorically.
Yeah.
We can use analogies. Go ahead.
I think there's just a lot of things that people do that I think that they believe to themselves that they're truly being a good person. And I think I have a good example of what that might be, which is like, you should never do something for someone that they are capable of doing themselves, because you're doing them a disservice, right? That, like, yes. If they're able to do it and you stop doing it for them, or any of these sort of things, then you're not allowing them to become a fully capable person. And that's the same with being compassionate. Being overly compassionate can lead to your downfall. Because it's like I think what I'm trying to say is that sometimes you do things that you think are good heart and, with a good heart and spirit, but they end up being far from what you imagined could happen, or a negative impact from your positive behaviors you were enacting. And I think that's definitely a struggle and a fine balance you have to find from being, I guess you could look at it as being a parent, like wanting to really help your child, but also you have to let them free so they can grow. I think that's another good example.
Well, think about the, not disrespect, but, well, it is disrespect. Think about how disrespectful it is, and maybe people can relate to this. When your parent helps you with everything, it's a reflection of them not believing you can do it for yourself. It's so the archetype that I am going to bring up is the one of the overprotective mother, of the helicopter parent. We're all familiar with these, and maybe we as listeners have had this growing up. But think about how detrimental it is to the development of the human being, by not letting them grow through the experience of stress. Because, as we all know, plants, animals, everything grows from positive stress. I'm not going to say all stress, because there is negative stress that obviously is not going to promote growth, but stress is important to grow. That's how you grow, is confronting being in situations you don't want to be in, but you have to be in because this is life. So when you have people, or parents or whoever, whatever the relation, helping, I think help is given out too easily, and it takes away from the beauty in the suffering of life. And we have to ask ourselves, the greatest people who we admire, more likely than not, have come from situations of despair where they had to overcome, where they did not have help. We want to create better people, and the way to do that is to let them grow on their own as much as they can, and only give help when it's absolutely necessary, because that's when it is going to mean the most. It's going to mean the most when really someone needs help and you help them, not when they don't need help and you help them. That's a big problem.
Yeah, well, I think that goes back to what I was saying before about, not helping someone with something that they are fully capable of doing themselves. And then that poses another question, since I'd say in Western societies that compassionism is actually looked upon as bad, or a sign of like weakness, or you don't have what it takes. And I think that was maybe the previous generation's way of looking at things. But also, I think compassionism, I think that's a word, being compassionate is almost a act of selfishness, right? So it's like, I feel like a lot of people who do compassionate acts is not for the act itself, but to make themselves feel better. It's like donating to charity. Sure, there's a lot of people that like want to help others, but a lot of it's just to like kind of free your conscience. You've made a lot of money or something, like give something back. There's definitely a fine line between good acts and selfish acts that are basically to like increase dopamine or serotonin in the brain.
Yes, this is going to be ironic, and I find it even more ironic, but Nietzsche comes to the same conclusions that true Christianity, in terms of like what Jesus actually stood for. He comes to almost the same conclusions as that line of morality. Now, maybe I'm misunderstanding his critique, and his critique is really of organized religion instead of like the literal teachings of Jesus. Well, I'll take that back because he critiques the core foundation. But sorry, I'm getting off track. What I was bringing up was the fact that in Christianity, from the words of Jesus, it is not considered a good deed if you help people or in whatever form it comes in, and other people know about it. In other words, if you go and donate money and then you post about it, or you on Instagram, or you go and feed homeless people and you make a whole big, you have a fucking TikTok recording of it or whatever, it takes away everything from what you just did, or almost everything. Because yeah, sure, you helped people, but connect to Ryan's point, you didn't really do it out of a sense of altruism or empathy towards the person. You did it because it serves as some form of satisfaction for you. And so the best people in terms of their altruism are the people that do it in silence, that you don't hear about. That you hear about, but only from other people, not from themselves. So.
Yeah, and you see that a lot with social media, and it's that it completely negates your good act by showing others that you did a good act, or telling others. Like, the second you open your mouth and say, I did this good act, that good act is kind of taken away, because now you're using that act of kindness in order to higher your social standing with those around you. So it's definitely, that's why exploring these ideas is so interesting, to like really understand like your actions and other people's actions, and the motives behind them. Because like, in order to like kind of be masterful of this prison your brain's in, you have to understand these things to become a better person, right? To understand why you're doing certain things. Are you doing that kindness for others' attention, or are you doing it because you're a genuinely kind person? And that kind of relates back to the point, but yeah, very interesting ideas.
Last thing that I want to talk about, because we were talking about compassion, but I do believe that pity and compassion are married or intertwined in a sense. Pity is when you look at somebody's situation in life, and you feel sorry for them. You feel like, oh, life dealt you a shitty hand. That sucks. And then you use compassion to try and help them. And again, Nietzsche brings up in one of the sections in this book about the man with the hunchback, where he says, if you take away the hunch from the hunchback, then you take away all of the overcoming of struggle that he has overcome. And in the same way, when you pity people, let's say maybe they have a physical disability or a mental disability or whatever the case may be, or their situation in life is not, the best, they're homeless, whatever. If you pity them, what you're doing is you're not allowing them to grow and to overcome or to have optimism. You're not allowing them to really have optimism, because think about all the people that you see, and I've seen plenty of them, that have these handicaps, that are, paralyzed from the waist down, or they're missing a leg. And yet I find plenty of them doing triathlons, snowboarding, setting Olympic, weightlifting records. If those things didn't happen because people were pitying them and they indulged in that pity, those things happen because those people woke up, in a Jocko Willink sense, at 4:30 in the morning, and they said to themselves, am I going to let this hold me back? Just because I'm at a disadvantage, am I just going to quit? To quote Nietzsche, he says that if we are like the rose, we should not pretend ourselves to be so weak when we feel the morning dew bending us, something along those lines. In other words, like, realize like we're stronger than we think we are, and we can overcome a great deal, but we have to overcome it. And pity is kind of undermining a lot of people's potential growth. And so that's what I got to say about that.
Okay, so basically, from what you just said there, I kind of have an idea about how you should view those things. So say you see someone with a severe disability, they got like 3 limbs missing, and why do you feel pity for that person? Because you're imagining yourself if you were in their shoes, right? So I think something you can take away from that is focusing on yourself, becoming the best possible version you could be. When you look at someone like that who is propelling forward as well, why would you would rather than feeling pity for them, you would look at them and I suppose have great admiration in a way for their trying to be their best selves. I'm trying to put this into more concise words, but like the opposing thought process from feeling pity for someone is feeling
elevating them.
Elevating them, but it's like
if they've done something worth elevating. I'm not going to elevate every handicapped person I see just because they have the potential. They have to use it.
Yeah, because it's like how much inspiration do you see when someone's got like no limbs and they're at the gym working out? And it's like, what are you complaining about? Why aren't you at the gym? There's literally someone with no arms and they're benching, you know?
They're just using fucking hemisync, dude.
But like, it's like,
I get a lot of, I'm in awe, to be quite frank, and I don't use this word lightly because I genuinely do not like people as a whole. But when I see people that really have shown so much growth and power, because that's really like a will to power. Like, they have the willpower to overcome even the most treacherous of situations. And so I'm in awe, dude. When I see people like that in the gym, I mean, I'm not gonna go up to them and fucking tell them like, "Oh my God, you're my idol. Like, you're so amazing." But it doesn't matter if I tell them. Like, what matters is how I feel, and how I feel is I'm in total awe, and it kind of like fuels my fire even more because I'm there and I'm like, wow, like it helps push me even further. So,
yeah, I guess I'm figuring out my point a bit more here, which is almost like a romanticized version where it's like you see two people and they're propelling forward. They don't want to stagnate and they want to better themselves. And it's like sort of like that movie feel to it where it's like they look at each other and just give them each other a nod, you know, and with that nod is like an acknowledgement that you're both moving forward, you know? Or like you understand their situation, or like you're not going to give them the pity, or like you think that they can do so much more, you know? It's like the second you pity someone, you're almost pitying yourself because you think that you would be such a
helpless,
weak person, and that fear within you is coming to the surface. So if you have pity for people, you need to change your mindset because they may not have pity for themselves. So why are you pitying them?
Yes, that's often what you see people output. What people's outputs are usually a projection of what's going on inside. So, and your example is perfect for this. If someone pities someone that's handicapped or that's at a quote unquote disadvantage, because really, to say it's a disadvantage is to say that somehow I am equal to that person and that we are on like an equal playing field when that's clearly not true. So even the word disadvantage is wrong. But my point is that the people that are pitying them are projecting how weak they are mentally, because again, like you said, in their mind, if they were in that person's position, they would fucking quit on life and just die somewhere, you know, thinking that they couldn't amount to anything. So it's like, again, it brings disrespect to the person who's overcoming the challenges of their life, you know?
Yeah.
If I can, there's like a deeper, I know I don't want to spend too much time on this one paragraph, even though it's
why don't we just do this paragraph and we'll do the honey another time?
No, because
I have quite a few
No,
more topics we can talk about if you want to keep going on this one.
well, there's a huge one that I want to talk about when we're talking about compassion and how harmful it is,
Mm-hmm.
because he's not wrong when he. Okay, there's two things I want to say. The first is that um, the most dangerous. I don't know the quote exactly, but it goes something along the lines of the most dangerous um, catastrophe that could happen to man is not natural disasters or natural whatever diseases, pandemics, whatever. It's the pandemic of us of sick human psyche as a collective, and this is a brilliant example of one of them, which is when people feel like they are compassionate and feel like they are doing good. um Again, you've always heard that some of the most evil things have happened under some of the best intentions. Now that point is a little flawed, but it kind of gets the point across with here, which is that if you're not careful and you're not really uh, understanding how you're moving through the world, this sort of compassion, like let's say you're compassionate, like how a grizzly bear is compassionate for its cubs, and when you know it's compassionate for its cubs until something gets in between her and her cubs, and then she turns into this fucking literal destroyer of worlds. The same thing can be said about these people that are compassionate. They share the archetype of the mother, where they show infinite love for the thing that they think is their quote unquote child, if you will. But then anything that they see as a threat to their quote unquote child, they will try and eviscerate off the planet. And so you can see this, and I'll end it here so you can contribute, but you can see this in a lot of these kind of fringe social movements for compassion for group identities that they think are like lesser of value, ironically. And so they show compassion towards them, whether it's minorities or different sects of sexual expression, whatever. And they'll show uber compassion, but then they show up the most utmost disgusting malice towards anyone that they think is a threat to their kin. And that's very dangerous, because that's how we end up. And I know this is going to sound dramatic, but that's how we end up at gas chambers. Okay. So go ahead. I'll end it there.
Yeah, I mean, well, we can just see how futile so many of these movements are. It's like the body acceptance movement, and it's like making people who are severely obese and like every indication of an unhealthy lifestyle, we're promoting them as beautiful and healthy and all of that. And it's like, that's what compassionate gets you, is, oh, we can have this sort of utopian ideal that forgoes basic science, science and literature and all of that jazz, because we feel a certain way rather than what is fact. You can't just say, I'm going to live to 300 years old when it's not biologically possible. Neither can you say that someone who is severely obese is healthy. And like, these are the kind of ideologies that are being propagated in today's society, and it's definitely concerning, and like, it's essentially, most of these movements are under the guise of compassionism. And even like a lot of people talking about how they're trying to take away freedoms by, we can just look to Canada on their restriction on speech, and how that turns into, or look at Australia. It's like, these things start very small, where it's like, people like, what's the big deal, we just do this one thing. But it's like, the second your freedoms start getting taken away, it's a snowball effect before it becomes totalitarian or some sort of dictatorship, where it's you do as I say, sort of society. And it's like, that's the main breaking point, is that there's some people who view a lot of these movements as the downfall of Western society, because they can see how these would evolve and spread and like basically infiltrate into the psyche of people And that kind of goes back to what you were talking about. The worst thing is a diseased psyche of the human mind, you know? And it's like, if we're just foregoing fact into make-believe land to make us feel better, you know, what kind of society is that leading to? Where we go, we don't care if that's a fact, we care how we feel, you know? It's madness.
Yeah. That a good example of the snowball effect is North Korea. There have been people that have, by God's grace, escaped North Korea, and how they describe it is exactly what you're saying. They over decades slowly, but surely stripped away human freedom and capabilities, thought control and whatever. Like 1984, they did it in a way that was so slow and gradual that over decades, the people that were once actually free started to die out, and then the people that have always been controlled were the only ones that are remaining now. In other words, just like an Animal Farm, the animals no longer know what freedom actually is, because all the ones that were actually free in the revolution or whatever died. And so this is why it's so problematic to start infringing on people's freedoms, like you're saying, because that's exactly where it leads, is a herd, if you will, of people that are being controlled by some other group of people. Again, Animal Farm, the pigs took control and were worse than the humans that they hated. And then what you have is the herd that doesn't know what their true capabilities and possibilities are, because this is all, like, slavery is all they know. So then that's it. It's a case in point. Everything's wrapped up nicely. They live in a disillusion, and that's it. And that's what we're trying to talk about.
Well,
I think.
Sorry, I guess at a point you brought up 1984, and what's
Yes,
so crazy is that book is a fictional piece of work describing a dystopian future, and we're essentially living in that dystopian future now. But it's become
worse.
yeah,
It's worse.
but it's like it's so like the human mind is just so crazy how, like, over time you just become, we're so good at adapting, so all of these, like, I guess societal restrictions that are put upon us from we think about our lifetime, but not essentially like generation to generation, you know? It's like that's essentially what's happening, is over the generation slowly, you know, restricting freedoms or whatever the case may be, and over that time it's so little, but in the grand scheme, it's like if you look at point A to point B, it's like a 10,000% increase in dystopianism.
100%. No, you're not wrong. We're really, some people argue, worse off. I mean, if anyone has read the book, they understand what thought crime is, you know, thinking the wrong way. And how is that any different from the whole PC monitoring of people's feelings under the guise of compassion? How is it any different? You can't say things because it might be a microaggression towards another human being. So it's thought control right there, in right in your face. Here's thought control.
Sorry, just one point. I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
what's crazy is, like, these ideologies are so perpetuated in the media and online, but 95% of people don't really think that way, or even in the extremes that are shown through our news sources. You know, it's like you talk to regular people, everyone kind of has the same idea of, like, what's a good life or a way to live. You know, it's like a decent amount of people have a pretty good idea of that, but on the news, it's like no one knows anything except this one very small percentage of the population that is getting given such a large platform to spread their ideals.
Yes, you are right. It's not good to hyperfixate on a small minority, although it is important to note that usually the small minority is the loudest.
Yeah.
We've all heard that before. That's the screeching
So like, even though they're small, it's like a pebble going into a still lake. It creates such a large ripple, you know?
Yes,
And
100%.
then the veil of societal norms is getting holes in it like a moth, you know?
Yeah, like a moth eating clothes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so, who knows, man? And it's like everyone's so distracted and kind of content, and like you can see that with it's like what the average person does after work, and if you look at like the difference between how people live their lives in the 50s compared to today, just so different. And like we've talked about like nature and everything before, but it's like we just haven't evolved to be in such a technological society, and I don't think enough people realize that like we've had tens of thousands of evolution to be able to survive in nature, and we're so far away from what we were evolved to do, you know? And it's like, what, 100 years versus basically millions of years of evolution, you know? And it's like we're just like so down with like technology, like this is the way to live. But it's like, how long does evolution take? You know, we just haven't we're able to utilize these things at a proficient manner, but it's like, why is there such an increase in mental health diseases when society is literally at the peak of safety, mortality rates and all these other things? Like, this is the safest time to ever live in history, yet everyone is well, not everyone, but mental health cases are just through the roof, you know?
You could say health overall, really.
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
It has become
at that point, yeah. With
yeah,
like sedentary lifestyles and all that, and sitting down for most of the day.
Yes, it's really funny how simple this equation is, but the further you separate yourself from nature, the more problems you get.
Tan your balls, for God's sake.
You say that, and I'm in utter awe right now because I'm looking out of my window and it's starting to become sunset time, and it is raining. But I've never seen this type of I've never been able to see this rain fall like this because of how the light is right now. Mm-hmm. I can see it falling really like from a really high in the sky, and it looks like it's falling in slow motion, and it's one of the most magical, things I've ever seen, and I'm in love with nature at all times. But anyways,
and sorry, that's such a good point, is being present in the moment, and like with how short our attention span has gotten, like people thinking about the future or stuck in their past or worried about just be in the present, be happy, be content. Like, even if the world is crumbling at your feet, why would you want to cry rather than laugh at the world burning around you? That sounds a bit manic, but you get the point.
That's I mean, Nietzsche's Zarathustra, and Nietzsche himself embodied that 100%. Not taking anything too seriously, no matter how dire the situation is, because you trust yourself and your capabilities to overcome, and to always be lighthearted. So I just want to summarize real quick, because we're, I think we pretty much covered this pretty well. But I just want to summarize for myself here that compassion and pity are intertwined. Compassion is a very dangerous thing, because inevitably there will be people you are not compassionate towards, and there's like a divide, and how that can lead to literal genocide that's happened before, and how pity undervalues and undermines people's overcoming of life's adversities and struggles. And I think that pretty much summarizes that section. So if you're ready, good sir, we can start the honey offering.
Yeah, I just had one more thing.
Go ahead.
Which is,
no rush,
I guess, why is it so important to like have the mentality of it is what it is, essentially, right? Like, whatever happens.
Very Taoist. It's very Taoist.
Yeah, are we thinking that Taoism and Zarathustra have some intertwining they've done.
Of course. Very, very Eastern. Dude, think about it, bro. The hermit, the archetype of the hermit, which is Zarathustra, always going back, returning to the forest and being in the now with the nature around him and understanding the nature within him. Like, you can't get any more Taoist than that, dude.
Well, it's like, think about the society we have today. You have to work to have a house so you can afford to eat, so you can afford to have materialistic pleasures, and also afford like basic necessities like gym and subscriptions and whatever else. And then like you've got to overcomplicate yourself by, if you have children, then like you're providing for another person. And then it's like this whole whirlwind of problems and stress and worrying about thousands of different variables and possibilities and all this stuff. And what I find so beautiful about the hunter-gatherer days is when you woke up in the morning, you only had one purpose, which was to eat, you know, to feed your people, going out into nature, finding what was to eat, and then enjoying the food with those in your tribe or whatever. And it's such a simple life, you know, basically just surviving against the elements, you know, rather than like all this foo-foo stuff we've got today of surviving. And it's like such a beautiful, simplistic way of living. Is like every day, like you could not get food, you could get food. Every day is a blessing that you live. Every day is a blessing that you get food. And we've foregoed so many of those with like the Industrial Revolution providing widespread, easy to preserve foods.
And think about too, this ironic thought that I just had, which is the farther into like industrialized society you get, the more steps it takes to get some of the most fundamental things, right? So like you hear all the time, like, oh yeah, society's provided with such great things, and it has. I'm not trying to undermine it or over romanticize hunter-gatherer life, but what I'm saying is that the more sophisticated you get into society, think about how you get your food. You know, if it's a farmer, he just goes and gets his food, or if he's a farmer/hunter, he just goes and takes down an elk, and there you go, there's your food. Whereas in a bigger metropolitan city or what have you, what you do is you go to the grocery store. The grocery store has to have people that drive the food to them. The drivers have to go get the food from a different place. There are so many hoops and to jump through to just get the basic necessary things to survive. It's like, what do you think would happen in the pandemic, not to get political, but has been a great, excellent example. Is like, what do you think happens if there's a kink in the chain? You know what I mean? In any part of the complex ways and logistical ways that the necessity of life gets to you, what if there's a kink in the chain? How will it monumentally disrupt your life, you know? Mm-hmm. So don't take it for granted, people.
And also, when you say I don't want to over romanticize the hunter-gatherer, I don't think there's really a problem with that. It's like, what's the negatives that people say? Oh, they live less time. What? What are you talking about?
No. Like, what I was trying to, my point about the over romanticizing is like they didn't only have to, Ryan. They didn't only have to worry about eating. They had to worry about warring tribes coming and fucking murdering them and raping their women and killing their children. Like there was buddy, they had to worry about a lot of fucking things, dude. Bro, they had to worry. They didn't have Doppler radar. They didn't know when a fucking hurricane was gonna hit. They just assumed that they knew seasonally. Sure,
but it was the God's choice. You know, they'd done something. You know, it's like everything was simpler. Everything was way simpler.
Yeah, when you didn't have to worry about a Category 5 picking you up and throwing you, you know, into a fiery death tornado until it happens.
You'd be surprised how intelligent people from the past were. Like the Minoans were 3000 BC, and they were one of the most advanced ancient Mycenaean societies, and they were the ones who actually taught the Egyptians how to sculpt with they would use a grid system, so they could like carefully carve out the statues so they look symmetrical. But they were run by women. They were snake priestesses.
Hey, women power,
Yeah,
baby.
women, dude, don't say there's no women power when 3000 BC there was a society ran strictly by women. And they were snake priestesses with their tits out. You can look up some images.
Whoa, dude, this is PG-13,
yeah.
family-friendly
Dude,
content.
History is not PG-13, let me tell you. Okay.
History is, dude. That's the name of our podcast. History is not family-friendly.
Yeah, but the Minoans, they would have huge snake pits, and when all the snakes would escape from the pit, they knew that a natural disaster was incoming. So they would flee the island.
Animals, yeah,
they would flee and come back. Like we had such a connection with nature and an understanding of why animals were moving and you know all this other stuff, or like birds fleeing, and like people really understood.
Yes, you're right.
Like, we don't need all this technology to understand that a massive disaster is coming, because I'm pretty sure even like some animals predict natural disasters before the technology can even do so. You know,
I don't know if that's true for all natural disasters. Like I don't know if an animal knows an earthquake's coming.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I think snakes. That's what snakes were doing too. I'm pretty sure.
And also, like, earthquakes are only a problem in cities, right? Like, if you are not in a building, why the fuck does it matter if the earth shakes?
Or is it HARP? We just don't know.
Whoa, dude. Oh my god. DARPA, bro? Was it DARPA funded? Fuck.
Dude. Dude, I'm getting off this podcast right now if you bring up DARPA funded.
Dude, that's a scary place to go, bro. The people are not ready for all of our DARPA funded research. Like, I don't even think people know what... all right, let's not go there. We can do that another time. That's a very, very, very long podcast to do.
Let's see. I mean, we're already at such a long time on this. I say we. You have another point we can discuss and kind of wrap things up here.
Yeah, we can do that. We can definitely do that, as opposed to, because the honey offering, I'm taking a look.
Yeah, it's quite long. We definitely don't have time.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, yeah. Well, there is a huge point, and this is going back to the religious side. God said these words: "God is dead. God has died of his pity for man." What does that mean? How do you interpret that?
Let's see.
Do you want me to go first?
I think, it just really depends what take you want to have with Nietzsche, right? Like, does he physically mean that God is dead, or does he mean that God has died in the hearts of the people, or has
Of
God?
course, it's never been literal.
Yeah. But let's see. So he died for his pity of man. So it is his love for man. I mean, this all goes back to what we've talked about, right? Is being compassionate compassionate for what we've talked about is bad, right? So
No, but not like in its entirety. Compassion is pity.
Well,
pity,
for what
yes,
what we've talked about today.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to say it's almost like a berserk, like a Guts Griffith kind of thing, where it's like he has his dream and you need to have your dream. So
You're talking about God?
Yeah.
Huh?
Like
Where are you going with this?
Well, you know how it's like Griffith said that in order for someone to be his equal, they have to have their own dream. They can't just follow his. He can't be
right.
friends with someone. Maybe it's not like this. This is like the birth of the Ubermensch in a sense, where it's like Jesus Christ is is essentially the Übermensch. I think Nietzsche has talked about that in one of his other books. Like, he basically respects Jesus Christ as a figure because he is essentially the Übermensch, you know? Where it's like the perfect being, the ideal being, the one that you need to aspire to become. So, I think I find a point, maybe like the phoenix, right? One must die for the, to be rebuffed and come above.
Okay.
Those are just some ideas.
That's an interesting take. I'm kind of hitting it from a way different perspective. I'm hitting it
I was trying to kind of relate it to our point, but I think I lost the plot because I kind of know what Nietzsche means with, I was trying to find a different perspective here. Hard to do.
Listen, we all got to think outside the box. That's healthy. I'm not pitying my disabled friend for
if you ever show me any pity, okay?
I will fucking murder you on the spot, bitch.
Extra large squat plug coming your way.
Oh shit. Oh, hold on. Oh no. Oh, thank God. Okay, sorry. So my I accidentally hit the space bar and that stops the recording. Luckily I only did it like a second ago, so I just resumed it. Okay, so right. So God is dead. God has died of his pity for man. So to me, my initial interpretation of that was that the pity for man is so great because of how flawed we are that is what killed God in this section, in this interpretation, is that we have so much growth that needs to happen for us to get even close to the Übermensch, that God is just, it's almost like we are an aborted fetus just like on the fucking ground. Or do you remember, if you've ever watched any Harry Potter nerds out there, do you remember when Voldemort was in that like golden hall in heaven and he looked like a dying fetus under a bench? Like, that's what God is God is pitying us because that's what he sees us as. And he's died because he's like, holy shit, these people suck. Well, that's my interpretation.
Okay, well, so basically God's love of man is so strong that he sent his only son to the earth to get killed.
Yes.
And like that sacrifice is so great, and an inspiration for all types of literary figures and books and movies and all that. But I mean, so it's like, okay, how about this? So if we look at like actual Christian theology, God sent his son, which is the greatest act of love he could have done, to the earth. He sacrifices himself for all the sins of man because we're so inherently flawed. So Jesus sacrifices himself for the sins of man. But maybe in Nietzsche's perspective, that greatest sacrifice that God could do for the people, to forgive them of all their sins as long as they accept Christ and Christian theology, was not enough because people became, I guess, what's a good word for this? Basically, what I'm trying to say is that because of this great sacrifice, that no matter how grave your sins are, as long as you truly believe in Christ, you'll be forgiven and you'll go to heaven. So perhaps like society fell into a bit of a dark period where like they weren't so scared of sin and kind of committing these treasons against the soul because they knew there was forgiveness in the end. So maybe it's like God is dead because he gave everything he could to us and people still spat in his face.
Damn. That's a pretty lit interpretation of that, dude.
Yeah. I think there's something in there, huh?
Yeah, no, that was actually, damn, that's pretty deep.
Dude, we get deep. We get 12 inches deep on this podcast.
Uh-oh. Oh, you crazy son of a bee.
But I think I'm pretty certain that's a much better point than my previous one.
Yeah, let's leave on a high note, huh?
Yeah. Dude, that's crazy. So, for those listeners or those who don't have the book, there's about let's see, probably around what 4 or 5 sentences we went over here for this amount of time. So it really just shows you how great of a social commentary of the world and life Nietzsche really had, where it was he took so much time to think and look at society as a whole that he's able to really give us some really good gold tips and maybe some solutions to answers we're looking for in the madness we call the world today.
Yes, if you will, Nietzsche really was the densest thinker.
Dude, dense thinkers. That's the name of the podcast.
Oh my! oh my God! Oh, I didn't know. Holy shit, dude! Bro, this was again. I love saying this, but this man was writing this shit in like 1870. Everybody, 1870. They didn't have. I don't think they had cars, dude. And this man was more right about society based and red pilled than everybody now. You know, bow to the king, the great stash.
Yeah,
the man who knoweth himself and you better than you do.
I know this is a treasonous thing, but there is another author that wrote books. I know I shouldn't have said that.
No.
Yeah.
Blasphemy.
I know. So Seneca wrote on the shortness of life, and basically like the condition of man and all the things that make him waste life or think that life is much shorter than it actually is. And this was written in 200 AD, so little under 2,000 years ago, and basically like described human beings perfectly. You know, so it's like we really haven't changed in 2,000 years. You know, I know a lot of people think we're so advanced, but really, I mean, at the end of the day, it's probably a lot of regression. We're just becoming, like Elon Senpai says, too dependent on technology, where we're basically cyborgs already with our phones and stuff.
100% dude. So 100%. That's why we're gonna be so ready for the chip he's gonna make that puts inside our brains. That's my like favorite meme, dude. Is like the fucking it's Bill Gates saying, you know, here's a vaccine, and people like it's the screaming head Wojak, and he's like, no, bro, there's chips in there, no, and then it's the bottom one is Elon Musk going, haha, I'm gonna put a chip in your head, and then people going, yay.
I mean, yeah, it's crazy, but let's leave on a positive note. We're gonna from me, I'm just gonna say you gotta live a life that it is what it is, and kind of accept things that happen to you, no matter how bad or how good they are. Just accept them, overcome, get over that hurdle, keep moving forward, because what's the point of stepping back and regressing like the human races, right. You know? We're gonna keep going forward.
Be better than everyone else.
Yeah. Well, it's so true. Like, if you become the Ubermensch, it's like you're setting a higher elevation, or a higher standard for what a human is. If everyone just worked on being their best self, then the normal human status will be elevated much higher.
Yeah.
Sick. Okay. Great podcast, Ben. I'll let you do the outro here.
Okay. We just have one question for everybody, and that is, what does compassion and pity mean to you? Was this relatable? Did this help your understanding? Do you have any questions? Let us know. We are here to help. Not even. Oh no, we don't want to help. Fuck you. We're here to troll you. You ask questions, you get trolled. That's how this works. Yeah, let's just continue to be dense thinkers. Hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you again.